Good evening. It is 5:32. I'm going to call this meeting of the Zoning Advisory Committee to order. Thank you all for coming this evening. That brings us to item 1.01, the call to order. I want to say thank you to the staff members that are joining us here tonight on the fourth Thursday. We usually we're a third Thursday group, but with the snow last week we adjusted. Thank you as well to staff as well as the public for making time to adjust based on the snow last week. That brings us to item 1.02, the roll call. Vice Chair Colby.
Holly Boardman. Shannon Coley here. Melissa Cook Sanford. Kristen Hahn. Tammy Elvis Lorraine. Present. Ryan Henderson.
Present.
Chris Knox. Here. Mia Mansfield. Present. Adriana Kuliko. Tyler Rogers.
Present.
Katie Schneider. Here. David Forms.
Lovely. So we have a smaller agenda this evening, but just sort of a reminder to folks that are joining us this evening. Are we green or yellow cards? Am I green? We have green cards that are in the back of the room. If you want to participate in public comment, we'll be taking public comment for anything on the agenda that is for action, as well as at the end of the meeting. But I'll need you to fill out one of those cards and then bring them over to the end of the desk over here. And we'll just go through those in the order that they're received. But that is how we'll take public comment tonight, which is really an important part of this process. So that brings us to the core of our agenda, 2.01. The approval of the minutes from January 15, 2016 meeting of the Zoning Advisory Committee, and this is an item for possible action. Do we have any comments or questions from the committee on our meeting minutes? See no questions or comments?
There's Mia Mansfield for the record.
Can you push the go?
Mia Mansfield for the record. Under roll call, Tammy Zimmerman was out for that meeting.
Okay. Staff. Tammy Zimmerman was our staff liaison. She was not, Tammy wasn't here last meeting? Okay, cool. Thank you for flagging that. So we need to amend the meeting minutes. Really take it. Good done so long. We need an action. Thank you. Good advice here. So in order to do that, we need to have a motion to amend the meeting minutes to reflect that change, and then we'll vote on it.
So I'd like to motion to amend the minutes to show that Tammy Zimmerman was not present for that particular meeting, and then I want to make a motion to.
No, that's the motion. Thank you. Perfect. Perfect. And we just need a second.
Chris Knox, second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to amend the meeting minutes from January 15th, 2026 to remove Tammy Zimmerman from attendance. All those in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right, now we need, if there aren't any other changes to the minutes, we need a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Tammy Lorraine for the record, I motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of January 15th as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The meeting minutes are approved. Thank you. All right, that brings us to agenda item 2.02, presentation and discussion regarding the future schedule of the Zoning Advisory Committee. This is an item for presentation and discussion only, so we will not take public comment on this item. At that time, I'll hand it over to Chief Zimmerman.
Thank you, Chair Rogers. For the record, Tammy Zimmerman, Chief Facilities Management Officer. And first, I want to thank you as a volunteer group for coming and doing the work that we put before you and making those tough decisions, but really appreciate all your input and your help with this, and specifically Chair Rogers and Vice Chair Coley and discussing these with us beforehand. So really want to talk about the schedule. If this Zoning Advisory Committee is able to make a recommendation to the board tonight, that would conclude this year's Zoning Advisory Committee agenda for the rest of the year in meetings. This would be the last item that the board has made action on for closing schools through the FMP, the Facility Modernization, and we would restart in August with the next round of what we have planned. So wanted everybody to kind of have that information in there, as we move forward. If there is not a decision made tonight, we do have the next meeting on the schedule already, right? But that's just in case. We would really like to make a decision tonight, only to keep the families having the option to use the school of choice window, which starts March 9th and ends March 20th. So this is intended to go to the board March 10th. So that would help them to make those decisions that are and provide those opportunities for their students. And with that, if you had any other questions about schedule, I'd be happy to answer those, but also we'll be looking to fill a couple positions in the summertime, as well as any of the positions that are currently filled by applicants here to be re-upped.
Thank you for that update. Any questions from committee members on the schedule ahead of us? Tammy, when will so you will have an update for us in August of sort of the season, so to speak, for next year?
Yes, so in August, once school gets in, we'll convene our zoning committee meetings, and at that very first meeting, we'll set a cadence of what we anticipate going through for the school year.
Sounds like a plan. Very good. Thank you. We will move swiftly on to our next agenda item, 2.03, which is the core of our discussion this evening. Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the proposed elementary level enrollment zone adjustments for the 2027-28 school year, potentially impacting the following schools: Roger Corbett Elementary School, Libby Booth Elementary School, Echo Loader Elementary School, Veterans Memorial Elementary School, E. Otis Vaughn Middle School, and Earl Wooster High School. And this is an item for possible action. And with that, I'll welcome staff. Mr. Rodello.
Thank you very much. Brett Rodello, long-range school planner with the district. I want to thank everybody for their time and intellectual and emotional energy that will be put into tonight's meeting. Before we get started, I wanted to reflect a personal experience that I had coming into campus this afternoon. And it was the historic charm and culture of this facility hit me when I arrived here. And I can say as much as the same for Veterans Elementary when we were there last month. This is for the community, also Zach, for whatever it's worth, that I want to encourage the community especially that they carry that charm and soul of this facility into the building that they end up in, wherever these decisions lead them. I think the future facility deserves that, the community themselves deserve that, and so do these historic ones. With that said, I'll get into our presentation. Thank you. So our outline tonight includes housekeeping and context items. We'll go over the geography and our options, and we'll open up for questions and discussion. So our topic purpose includes Loader being reconstructed on its existing campus, going into effect in the fall of 2027. And Booth is going to receive an expansion and modernization effective the same year. Veterans and Corbett are both going to be closing and rezoned into Loader and Booth. No impacts to middle school or high school boundaries are going to result in these changes. Before we advance too much into the presentation, the school district wanted to provide recognition and thanks for all community partners that have participated in the process of the dynamics of the 4 schools we're dealing with. The importance of these partnerships sincerely cannot be overstated. And all these stakeholders include, but are not limited to, parents, PTAs, community members, and all surrounded by the impacted schools, WCSD's Capital Funding Protection Committee, the Oversight Panel for School Facilities, and you folks, the Zoning Advisory Committee, City of Reno Council members, Reno Sparks Indian Colony leadership and staff in the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency, and former elected officials, and Ward 3's Neighborhood Advisory Board. This table here outlines history of occurrences that we have recorded with these engagement partners spread across 3 different engagement groups with the district. Attached to the meeting materials tonight in the back shows detailed evidence of these engagements from these engagement groups for everybody who participated and gave their input regarding these.
Brett, one question here. So are all these instances specific to this agenda item?
That's correct. Yeah, some of it included FMP going back to August of 2022, I think, but it kind of captured all of that, focused into where we are today.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So getting into our fundamentals here regarding Admin 5015 School of Choice, which supports students and families' options to apply to attend to a school of their choice outside their enrollment boundary. This is limited up to any school's 90% of capacity. And as Tammy minutes ago discussed, that the window, the second window for school of choice for the next school year opens up March 9th. So for what it's worth, any changes that are recommended that the board may approve on March 10th, it will be an opportunity for families to apply to attend a school of their choice that are impacted by rezones. For Admin Reg 7107, alignment of school attendance zones pertaining to legacy grades, this is not going to apply here as Corbett and veterans are going to be closing. Those 5th graders aren't going to have the ability or chance to stay with their legacy school. Our guidance from Admin Reg 7107, we're going to try to keep subdivisions and small neighborhood units in the same attendance zone to the extent possible. We want to assign students to the closest school to the extent possible. Create compact attendance zones with few or no island areas. Include target enrollments that allow for growth and anticipated changing demographics. We want to comply with feeder patterns to the extent possible and avoid placing transportation burdens on identifiable diversity subgroups. Our timeline for impacted facilities is as follows. Pretty much everything occurring across these 4 schools is happening in the 27-28 school year. Additionally, at Booth, Booth is going to receive a reconstruction that's going to make use of the modernization efforts that are going into place in 27-28. That reconstruction will occur sometime in the 2034 to 2037 timeframe per the FMP. And details on that can be referenced in the FMP.
Brett, the modernization or the renovation of Booth, does that include classrooms?
I can't state how many classrooms are going to be added to that, but it is going to include expansion to the facility. I want to say maybe 2 classrooms are added. I don't know off the top of my head, but it is a slight expansion, and we can see that in the numbers as they come up. We'll point that out in our student enrollment projections as we see that slide, and I'll show you.
Okay. And are those projects too on track, so there wouldn't be any risk of construction delay causing?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, those are on schedule.
Brett, before we move off that
Yeah.
slide, one question that we did get from some of our community engagement was, what is the plan for the land at Corbett and veterans, or just for those facilities? To the extent you have any sort of update from the district, that was a big question from community members.
Yeah, it's a big question. Frankly, it seems like Tammy might want to answer that. It's a big question internally and externally, and it remains to be seen. And we're doing our darndest to make sure that it ends up in the most optimal place that the universe can open up for. for the community, we're looking at all angles of this. As far as special programs are concerned, including special education, English language learners, psychological services, things of that nature, special programs are going to follow students wherever they end up. Facility designs pertinent to booth and loader have been informed by current special program needs and utilization, and our school capacities reflect special program utilization. And this table outlines total classrooms currently occupied by special programs.
One more question. And I think it's veterans that's a designated STEM academy. Does the STEM piece go to the new school as well? How does that work?
That'll be a determination by academics and what happens with that STEM designation, if it does not go to the new school or if it does. So that'll be a future discussion with academics.
Follow up on this slide too as well, Brett, because special programs was another key theme that came up in some of our community engagement. Can you expand a little bit more on sort of the programs following the kids? Because there was a big question of just sort of trying to understand folks that are in these sorts of programs and what to expect as kids are moved.
So Tammy Zimmerman, Chief Facilities Management Officer. So once we know the zoning decision of the advisory the committee tonight, and then the board approves, we'll be able to tell, because each individual student has an individual education plan that has these special programs. We'll be able to tell where they're going and be able to support them at the schools with their individual program, whether it be strategies for autism, SIPs for social intervention, and ELL, English language learners, any of those. They'll follow the students. They also want to recognize special education gets transportation to their schools as well. So, they might, if there are some services that they might have not a full class, they might combine them at schools. But that'll be a discussion as we get through the zoning, because I can't tell you what's going to go to what school until we know where the students are going to go. And those schools will work with the families to actually identify that and let them know what's going on with those.
As far as transportation goes, we've got a couple slides on this. This slide, the imagery here applies to our option 1 that you folks have seen. In this case, all areas will receive transportation to their zone school, with exception to the majority of North veterans right now, which is indicated in orange there. The exception to that being that southwest corner that you can see outlined in green with a white transparency there. Those households are a mile or more away from Booth, in which case they would receive transportation to Booth. This is detailed in the next slide. As far as options 2, 4, and 5 go, everybody that's going to be impacted will receive transportation who's outside of 1 mile or crossing Kitsky, Plum, or Vassar, which is everybody in those instances. This is a detail of that Southwest North Veterans Enrollment Area, roughly, south of Wheeler Avenue, south of Crampton to Vassar. I worked with our transportation department to kind of identify and draw this out. It's somewhat of a rough draft. Transportation will have the final iteration on this, but this will give people an idea that if North Veterans is zoned to Booth, this specific area will receive transportation. And info on this will be forthcoming upon the future school year when transportation makes progress and a decision's made in terms of the enrollment boundary here.
Brett, a few follow-ups on transportation, because again, this was another one of the key themes that we heard from our community engagement. So I think 2 questions. While we're on this one, is there logic on this step as opposed to just running the line to Wells? They sort of...
The logic is based off distance. And that's the information I received and sort of the imagery that I was provided to produce this. That's how this has been put together. Again, this is a rough draft that transportation will have the final piece on.
Okay. I think that my second question is, on the previous slide, the second bullet, I just want to be crystal clear on the crossing of Kitsky, Plum, and Vassar, because there's been additional concerns of just crossing those roads. So, so we understand, if any of those options, I guess 2, 4, and 5, are selected, or even an option 1, if someone is inside of the 1 mile walk zone but has to cross one of those roads, will they be given transportation?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this slide shows us impacted students within our impacted areas. The major take home here is we highlight total students that are attending out of zone in these impacted areas. And for example, in the bottom left corner, the gray box that shows 141000Z, 141 students out of zone, pointing out that of those 141 students out of zone at Loader, 71 of them attend Bailey Charter. Bailey Charter is 6 or 7 blocks south of Loader Elementary School. That's where it's located. And as we've discussed in previous months regarding new school openings, we've seen on average an additional 15% of students at our new schools from outside the district, whether that's district-sponsored charters, state-sponsored charters, homeschool, private school, et cetera. The point here is that, one, just drawing attention to kind of the gist of this slide, but 2, that it's reasonable to expect that we might receive some students from Bailey Charter at that new Loader upon its opening. Between Loader's current boundary and the blue area, which is South Corbett, there's 90 students that attend Bailey Charter right now. So we don't know, we can't predict the extent to which that occurs, but we can say on average the district sees an additional 15% of its projected enrollment of new students at new schools. Last month, we were requested to provide some residential development info. This slide outlines that with the chart. The second column here shows total development projects within each enrollment boundary, with Booth being number 1 with 18 development projects. The next column over shows the 10-year window projected student generation from all those projects. And then the last column shows the average number of students per year we expect to receive from that development. So not a significant amount of student generation is expected from new development in any of these areas. And any of that projected student generation is factored into our student enrollment projections. And moving on to our geography and options, we've discussed the general layout of our study area, where we're south of I-80, east of Virginia Street, we're north and west of McCarran, bisected by I-580, and shooting out industrial Glendale area to the east. To study where our arterial roadways, including Kitsky, Vassar, and Plum. Those have informed, we've leaned on those in informing what might be best for school enrollment boundaries, safest, and all of that when it comes to our considerations here. They're just very easy to draw lines on, to be straightforward, and consider as significant aspects of the urban geography that we have to work with these decisions. Option 1 here, you can see is our staff recommendation. You folks have seen this last month. We've added a component that shows transportation dynamics per these changes. So the white stars indicate those areas will receive transportation. A black star indicates that those areas will not receive transportation. But this option takes veterans north of Vassar into Booth, Corbett north of Vassar into Booth, veterans south of Vassar into Loader, and Corbett south of Vassar into Loader. The before and after on this appears as follows. The thing that caught my attention on this recently is the concentricness of both of these enrollment boundaries. And what I mean is you have these elementary schools becoming like a real focal and center point, sort of as regular as it can get for both of these enrollment boundaries. There isn't another option that does this as clean as this one. And I think when it comes to creating community and things like of that nature around a school, you're not going to see it cleaner or better than this, in my opinion. This is a look at the student enrollment projections related to option 1. We like this best in terms of the balance of enrollments that we see. It amounts to a difference of about 90 students in favor of Loader. Given the nature of Booth's current facility and the expansion, I think this is an optimal setup for both schools. Per your question, Shannon, regarding the difference of the expansion at Booth, we're going to add about 50, a little less than 50 seats to there. So I think we're adding 2 classrooms, but that's what we're looking at there in terms of the expansion. And then once we go into design for the reconstruction there, we'll be looking at enrollments and projections at that time to inform the design of the reconstruction.
Brett, just because this chart is new to some folks, do you mind just orienting folks to
Sure.
this, as well as like the target percentages?
Yeah. So the chart on the left shows our current capacity conditions and projections. You have quite a few different columns of data here. The first being the school name, the second being the capacities at each school, the facility capacity is in black, the portable capacity that we call temporary is in red. That red capacity is not counted into the facility capacity. The column that says current enrollments is just that. Current enrollments divided by our max capacity gives us our current capacity utilization. And then moving over to the right, it shows what the projected capacity and utilization is for the future, including 2026 and 27, and then in 27 and 28 when these changes are made. And then the final 2 columns show the average projected enrollment for the 5-year window and 10-year window from the time that these changes are made. And then the box on the right shows, the box on the left shows current conditions and projections. The box on the right shows what that looks like once this option makes its change. Where again, like if we go to the very far right and look at Booth, they have a projected enrollment in the 10-year time frame being about 441 students. Corbett closes, Veterans closes. Loader looks at about 532 students at that time. And as I mentioned, this accounts for a difference of about 90 students between Loader and Booth, favoring Booth, which is going to have the capacity at this brand new facility to take a little more students. It's just, it works out as well as it can be. One other thing I'll point out that I'll probably say again throughout this presentation is that this option sets up the future for these enrollment boundaries better than any other option that we've looked at. Meaning that when you go to make a recommendation, this option is gonna quote unquote promise you the likelihood that you're not gonna have to revisit enrollment boundary changes at these 2 schools indefinitely. And I cannot speak with as much confidence, nearly as much, with any of our other options that we'll see tonight. Option 2 is similar to option 1 with the exception that it's putting all of Veterans into Loader instead of splitting it where North Veterans is going into Booth. The identical changes in option 1 are happening with Corbett, where Corbett north of Vassar goes to Booth. Everything south of Vassar at Corbett will go to Loader. And then the stars indicating who would receive transportation in this option. I'll point out here there's a few more incongruencies related to our guiding principles. We had none in option 1, where here we have 3. We'll summarize that at the end of the presentation. Here's the before and after, where the after you can see we have this more irregular boundary between the two schools, not as clean, and I would even go as far as to say as healthy concentricness to it. That line in the northwest is East Taylor Street, comes down south to Kitsky, and then east to Vassar. And then taking a look at our student enrollment projections, the key thing to zone in on here is Loader in the future projections. They're looking at about 77-78% of capacity. If Loader is to see the school district's additional 15% average realization of new students at the new facility, you would set Loader above 90% of its capacity. That's like the main reason. It is the main reason I don't like this option as much as option one, and I think my colleagues would say as much. But just pointing that out, that if we do realize a good amount of students from other schools to Loader, we could see this situation at Loader exceed 90%.
Brett, follow up on that, because I think that hadn't clicked in my head before. So new facilities you are projecting can have an additional 15% above what we see here?
We don't project for that, but historically that's what we do see, an additional 15%.
Okay.
And the 15 you're thinking is from charter schools?
Charters, state-sponsored charters, probably. That stuff becomes fuzzy because we can't identify where they've come from. So state-sponsored charters, other private schools, or homeschools would be the main three there. We can identify students from district-sponsored charters like Bailey. But we don't have historic records for a lot of times for where students have come from.
But 15 is the standard?
It's the average.
It's the
yeah, it's the average
average.
that we see. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Option 4 and 5 are new. These options consider keeping the current veterans and Corbett enrollment boundaries together, with exception to that South Corbett area that's going to go to Smith Ridge and then the elementary school at Pine. In this instance, all of veterans and all of Corbett would receive busing to their schools. This is a look at the before and after on here. On each of these options, you see students in the south end of Corbett that are going to be bused past Loader to get to Booth. And in option 5, you'll see students in the north end of Corbett that are going to be bused past Booth to get to Loader. That's not something that we identify as a preference. And we'll see what this looks like when it comes to our grading of the guiding principles. A look at the student enrollment projections here. This very underutilizes Loader and probably more significantly overcrowds Booth, where we're trending towards 120% of capacity at that school. That said, that we identify this as a non-option. Option 5 takes all of veterans and moves it into Booth and all of Corbett, minus that southern Corbett area, and moves it into Loader. Similar dynamics of option 1 pertaining to veterans and its transportation aspects. Incongruencies on both options 4 and 5 include 5 of 6 of our guiding principles, which we'll see towards the end here. This is a look at the before and after, where again, you're gonna have students in the north end of Corbett busing past Booth to get to Loader. Our student enrollment projections here, virtually overcrowding Booth. Again, this is something not seen as an option that we want to go into. And this is a look at our guiding principles scorecard. Option 1 is passing with flying colors. I'll point out the feeder patterns thing, we could probably move that to a neutral, as it's kind of a non-factor in this, but I left it green for the sake of optimism. Option two is kind of getting blown out of the water by option 1, and then 4 and 5 is pretty blown up on all levels in terms of an inferiority. And again, we're talking keeping subdivisions intact, closeness to schools, compactness of the enrollment boundaries, boundaries that allow for growth, that comply with feeder patterns, and then either do or do not have transportation burdens, which relative to option 1, 2, 4, and 5 do create those. Wrapping up, our staff recommendation is option 1, which is establishing coherent, practical, and the most simple boundary lines aligning with existing roadway and neighborhood patterns, and it's effectively balancing enrollments for the long term. Thanks for your attention to that, and we're happy to have any discussion and questions.
My only question was on option 1, when it comes to that 15% that you see in option 2, why
Yeah.
is there not the same?
I think-
Like, what's the purpose?
Yeah, I think option 1, they're looking at about 70%, exceeding 90% of capacity.
No,
Yeah.
I get that, but you guys were putting no projection on that 15% on 2, but they're not going to do the same for option 1? Was there a reason?
Just based on how the numbers have landed, with option 1, we wouldn't see, with an additional 15%, we wouldn't see loader exceed 90%.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it may still get the 15%.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
I think
Thanks.
we can apply the 15 to any new building is basically sort of your rule of thumb.
That's the rule of thumb.
Okay.
Yeah, that I think we can talk about that, relativistically, but when it comes into actually projecting for it, we're not there yet. In the future, we might be.
So if we did add the 15% to the 1, it's not going to hit over 90, but what are you thinking the percentage would be?
We'd be at about 86%.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, question.
So just a little clarification maybe around the special programs. I count 17 programs between Corbett and Veterans, but I'm assuming there's overlap there and that we were not looking for 17 classrooms between those 2 other schools that we're zoned
Yeah,
into?
that's accurate. We do expect consolidation amongst programs where it's possible.
Okay.
There's programs that use classrooms that don't necessitate classrooms in instances, in which case these new facilities will be provided spaces that are appropriate for those, not necessarily classrooms. So these numbers outline classrooms specifically, where our new facilities are designing around mitigating those programs without the need for a classroom. Yep.
Another question that came up from community engagement was understanding the previous history with Hidden Valley. Because I know that previously we heard from the Reno Sparks Indian Colony that they had a history of actually being zoned over there. So as we're trying to contemplate the impact of past and future zoning, can you guys share anything of the history as it relates to that zone, previous zoning?
Yeah, that zone went into effect at the start of the 2020 school year. So any changes that occur here that start in the 27 school year will not impact any students that were impacted by that zone. I think that's a key factor. Additionally, the Reno Sparks Indian Colony is something like 0.7 miles away from Booth, whereas I think they're 5.5 miles away from Hidden Valley. So when it comes to geographic adjacency and things of that nature and our guiding principles, sticking to the guiding principles favors Reno Sparks Indian Colony into Booth.
Do you guys know why they were sent to Corbett instead of Booth, since it is a stone's throw back in 2020?
I don't have the context on that.
It also looked like we got some feedback on the westmost boundary as well, meaning if instead of South Virginia being your, the way that makes the map look really great, it was Wells, and those to the west could go to either Mount Rose or Jesse Beck. Were there any discussions around that? It looks like it's almost equidistant to Booth.
We haven't looked at that. We haven't modeled that.
Is it something we would want to, or not exactly?
Mainly because Virginia Street just sticks out as
Sure.
a definitive line there. I
And I know
think,
middle school pattern, it would have a split feeder. but-
That's correct. If we did move there, it would impact middle school and high school.
Sure.
On the topic of feeders, I want to just be clear. The agenda item has both Vaughn and Wooster on it, but all options don't touch a middle school or a high school boundary. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so all these options aren't, no one's getting sort of moved for Vaughn or Wooster.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee before, yep?
Yeah, one more. On option 2, you have, it says admin reg incongruencies, and it talks about compactness. Compact attendance zones or few or no islands. How does 2 affect number 3? No islands or,
I think the compactness relative to 1, that north veterans dropping into Loader, relative to 1 where that north veterans goes to Booth, to me, it read as less compact than option 1. So I'm basing the relativeness of all this to that option 1, where option 1 is setting our standard for compactness and closeness and subdivisions and all that. That's where I drew that comparison.
okay.
Any other questions to the committee before we open it for public comment? Seeing no lights. Thank you, Brett and Tammy. At this point, we're going to open it up for public comment, and then after we have that, the committee will deliberate. Do we have any public comment this evening?
Pablo Navaduran.
Hello, guys. My name is Pablo Navaduran. I'm a Never Vice Board Ward 3 member, so I want to say thank you, but I should involve for Central Winter Project, but I had to involve because I'm a NAB Ward 3. So I want to thank you, all the zoning advice committee, to rezone all the South Corbett into a new elementary school, Pine Campus, which is Century and Moana Lane. So thank you. But here are my 2 cents. I think that will be best for this neighborhood. So we're Washington School District and the city of Reno are creating natural barriers. The dedication of downtown Reno has displaced long-time low-income residents, which is mostly that area are zoned for Booth, Vaughn, and Wooster. That result decline enrollment in those schools. It's heavily justified at west side of Virginia Street, which is zoned for Mount Rose Slope in Reno. I think the city of Reno have failed the eastern side of the downtown Reno community. The underinvestment into those communities, a lot of homeless and many residents are leaving this area. Not just the downtown Reno, but the central Reno area. I know downtown is now Ward 3, but it's Ward 1, but residents were Ward 3. I can fear and pack it when what's going to happen in Ward 3 and after 2036. All right, so there are apartment across such as south of Peckham that are zoned for Booth. No, not Booth. Lauder, a current zone for Lauder. The UC zone for Smithridge. But if option 2 were picked, I think rezoning all the veterans into a new Lauder will give them a new school, new facility, and plus they can unite community, go together as one community. And for Corbett, there's a complex issue. It's huge area going from Windows Spark Indian County all the way to the New World area. And the New World area rezoned to a new elementary school Pine Campus. And having Reno City Indian County into Booth rather than going to Hidden Valley, that's the closing compactness. Long-term for this area to be Levy Booth. West of Corbett, central or South Corbett into a new Lauder. I like to support option 2. Richard Shepson of Casey Triangle, which is south of Peckham, should be rezoned to a new elementary school Pine campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christy Jacobs.
Hi, Christina Jacobus is actually my real name, but I am the Reno Sparks Indian Colony Education Department Manager, and thank you to all of you for the dedication and the work that you do. And I also wanted to make a public statement to thank you, Tyler, and all the rest of the crew you brought to our sovereign nation to meet with us. That was very helpful. So that was the first thing I'd like to say. The second thing is, personally, taking my badge off, I feel like option 2 is better. And the reason why I was looking into that was that puts both of them at 70%, in the 70% range, as opposed to Booth at 80, over in the 80% and 70%. And I wasn't certain about that 15%, why there was no talk about what it would do to Booth. Because if we do option 1 and there's any growth in that, that would put Booth at the higher capacity as well. So that was my reasoning for the option 2 choice that I liked. And then I wanted to let the board know, or the committee know, that at the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, we have had no other concerns from our families other than the question on the Hidden Valley, because that's where we were before. Are comfortable with the Booth decision, if that's how it goes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Monique Madrid Borca.
Good evening. My name is Monique Madrid Lewingau, and I'm the principal of Veterans Memorial. And I wanted to take some time to briefly summarize the community feedback that I received from our families. Through a survey offered to our families at an informational event, our families were asked to choose the option they preferred between the 2 options, 1 and 2. At the time, we weren't discussing 4 and 5. 58% of respondents preferred the split zone option 1, while 42% of respondents preferred moving everyone to Echo Loader. So while there is a slight lean towards option 1, the community is divided. The most common concerns expressed through the survey were safety and proximity. Many families are worried about children crossing busy streets, particularly near Vassar and Broadway and Plum Lane. Others expressed frustration that some students may be assigned to a school farther away in proximity than a closer nearby option. Another major concern is keeping students together. Parents are worried about separating children who have been classmates since kindergarten, especially during an already emotional time and transition of the school closing. Transportation details were also unclear to families. Questions were raised about bus eligibility, walking routes, and before and after school transportation. In addition, several parents asked about continuity of special programs like strategies and support for our more vulnerable students. Beyond the logistics, many families simply expressed sadness about the closure. Veterans Memorial represents community stability and relationships for our families. In summary, the community is not resistant to the change, but they are asking for safety, fairness, clarity, and strong support for students during this transition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Liz O'Neill.
Hello, I'm Liz O'Neill. I'm a teacher at Corbett, and I've been a longtime teacher, and I don't know if any teachers were actually on the team for planning any of this, but I can't see anything up there, but it seems as though all the shelters are in the green, and I've been teaching a long time, and every child that I've had in a shelter, many childhood adverse experiences. And with that comes many developmental delays, emotional trauma, environmental delays. Many times, every child we've had a report for CPS are in the shelters this year. And having all those children, we love them, adore them. It's not that we don't want them, but having all those children in one school is challenging. And I need you to be aware of that. And I'm sure there were no educators on the team that did these maps and put that into their mapping. So I need you to be very mindful and come into a classroom. Come see me in kindergarten tomorrow. And those families and those children go through a lot. They struggle. And then they have to come to school and try to forget about grandpa shooting dad. That's a lot for a 5-year-old. Or another child was found on 4th Street. Him and his mom were both on drugs. Imagine coming to school and your mom's in prison. Do you want all those kindergartners in one school? I'm sure someone didn't think about that. They're just thinking about what's closest. I need you to be mindful about that. It's just about money and logistics for all these other people. It's not. It's about our children being successful in school and being safe.
Thank you.
Milano Gomez Mead.
My name is Emiliano Gomez Meza. I'm the student body president at Worcester High School, so it's nice to see you all here today. I wanted to come to this meeting just to make sure, I know there was mention that Vaughan and Worcester may have been affected by these rezonings. It's good to hear that they're not being directly affected, but I like the last message about being mindful. I think that with the closure of Roger Corbett being so close to Worcester campus and veterans as well, but Worcester because it's more personal to Corbett because it's more personal to me because it's right by Worcester. I think it's also important to be mindful just how much of a community hub this elementary school is, and I believe that the rezoning could be good for families and it could be good for students as well to have something more modern for them as well. But it's definitely important that something that helps the community has to stay here. I know that there's plans possibly for an AFMP movement initiative here, maybe a co-location with Worcester High School, which is something that we're open to as a community, but there has to be something within that project that still serves the community, some type of, at Worcester we've brainstormed like child care centers or one child care center in an AFMP project perhaps. Something that serves the community has to be in this new project if that does come to happen. And so I just want also to reiterate mindfulness and how much elementary schools like these impact communities, and I really hope you guys take that into account if, like on March 10th, I know you guys are discussing that, so I hope that you guys keep that in mind. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
I have no additional comment for 2.03.
Very good. Thank you. I would also just want to observe that having been in ZAC for a few years, the process of community engagement seems to be strong in this exercise. Like what I've observed from schools and principals and members of ZAC investing time, I think it's a good model. I feel like ZAC only works well when there is strong community engagement, and it feels like we are observing that in this process. With that, we will open this item up for deliberation and possible action. Would anyone like to start a discussion amongst the committee?
Sure. Cami LaRae for the record. So I think that with every school shift and understanding how programs will shift and other support kinds of outreach that may be needed, I do believe that having this option one as a model would make a lot of sense with regards to being able to target special programs for some of the special needs that we just heard about. So it's easier to help and to provide those programs when you can clearly recognize where the need is instead of trying to spread out your support with programs across multiple facilities. So that's that. there's very few examples that I've seen since I've been on this board where it's so clear-cut, makes so much sense from a neighborhood perspective, from a future stability perspective. I recall in one of the meetings, last year, people kept asking, why do you keep changing this? Why do you keep shifting the zones? Why do you keep doing that? I think as a committee with foresight and using the guiding regulations, there's nothing clear that's been presented in front of me since sitting on this committee as option one.
Katie Schneider for the record. Does anybody else on the committee want to, I agree, option one is very clean. Does anybody else want to explore a Wells boundary and the option to send some on the west side to either Mount Rose or Jessie Beck? Or am I the only one?
I don't want to have to disrupt
So-
middle school and high schools,
Yeah, I mean,
feeders.
I need to call out two on the agenda that those schools were not agendized. And so the bounds in which we are allowed to sort of have a discussion would not allow that.
Got it.
I will echo too that this is, I think this is at least the third, maybe fourth meeting in which we have discussed this, and that option was not raised by anyone.
I want to address the North Corbett corridor, or really the shelters up there, going to Booth, and the woman who said it would overload Booth. And I have discussed, it's been discussed, and they said, what I believe I remember correctly was, we can do it. We are good at this. This is what we do. I may be wrong if it's overloaded or not. I mean, I understand her emotion. I heard optimism. So just wanted to pass that along.
I think as the spouse of a public educator, our schools and our teachers and our staff are asked to do so much. And so that message certainly lands with me. I think that I've observed Zach having to make decisions, trying to be as consistent as possible as we approach these. And there is no perfect answer. And every decision that we'll have will lead to some positive and maybe a suboptimal outcome, but it is our job to try to balance all of those. And as I look at the options, I agree that option one checks so many boxes of what our job is to do. I've heard staff address the concerns of the community, whether it is transportation, whether it is commitments for special programs to follow kids. But option one, when I look at the foundational principles in which we try to make decisions, which is consistent boundaries shaped by neighborhood structures, designing an option in which there is a level of future-proofness that provides growth, so that a clear message we heard from the communities was indeed tired of ping-ponging and moving. And option one provides, in my mind, the clearest path to give these communities continuity and to sort of build and continue to sort of support the communities that exist around them. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
So it sounds like out of the four options, 4 and 5 are off the table pretty much. I think we're all in agreement with that. 1 and 2 are left, and the idea for parents and families not to have to worry about boundary changes going forward is highly appealing, and that's what I found with option 1 from staff. And then number 2, the idea of pushing Echo Loader immediately to like 90% of capacity is very concerning. So for me, option 1 is where I would land.
Any other comments or deliberation from the committee? If not, is anyone prepared to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Cami LaRae for the record. I, Cami LaRae, move that the Zoning Advisory Committee recommends option 1 as presented, effective for the 2027-28 school year, to the Board of Trustees for possible approval.
Thank you. We have a motion on the
Ryan
table.
Anderson, for the record, I second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to move that the Zoning Advisory Committee recommend option 1 as presented, effective for the 2027-28 school year, to the Board of Trustees for possible approval. All those in favor of the motion on the table, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Very good. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. That brings us to agenda item 3.01, general public comment.
Pablo Navaduran.
I want to say thank you for Zoning Advisory Committee to make a right decision to have option 1, not to have to rezone again for a very long time. And thank you. Thank you for the veteran, North Venture community that support going to Booth, because I will support option 2, and they all Booth to lower, to have a community together. 90%, and for 90%, why not rezone all the Kiski Triangle into a new middle school Pine Campus, which is 65% capacity. So I don't get it. There are some community members, some public commenters say like Vaughn is too large, but now I could say Echo Lawyer too large, because if you look at a woman, it's so low. It had to do with protection and underinvestment on this neighborhood, because those community, those delayed development and underinvestment in Ward 3 area, especially Central area, had to actually fail for city council to improve those parks, have a large space for parks, and have a new apartment building that could add more kids to the school district. So I'm happy. I know you don't have a control over the development, but I want to say thank you. Thank you for listening to community of boys. So I'm happy at option 1, a little clean to me, and with the exception having those kids can't try and go to a new middle school Pine campus, but I'm. If Echo Lord on your eyes, leave it. So it's up to those community that's I want to. And also the AM50, I do like the Corbett repurposing for Corbett. That school I've been there watching Corbett Elementary School at. I went to watch Corbett. That's my alumni school. So there you go. And then also I want to say why I do support a new album building on the Corbett campus, also the Worcester campus. If Worcester were repurposed, we need to have a large regional park in that area so the kid can have access to have a soccer field. Beside like Central Reno area doesn't have any park. No, they do have so many parks, but they have no soccer field to host or unstable to host those soccer matches. So thank you very much. And my birthday is on March 22nd.
Thanks, Pablo.
And 6-7.
Oh boy, that's still around. Any other public comment?
I have no public comment.
Very good. Before we adjourn, I want to inform Zach, we will be doing new elections in the new year, and I want to share that I will not be seeking a chair again. It's time for some fresh blood. And so I just want everyone to just sort of know that publicly, so that we think about who wants to raise their hand next. There's a great hand right next to me, but we'll talk about it in the new year. With that, I will adjourn the meeting at 3.02. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next year.